ReTrekking.
That was Star Wars.
Oh, well, I always mix them up. Alright, what episode is this, Dylan? I don't even know.
This is episode 18, the laser drill. I believe it's actually called Home Soil.
Maybe they'll use the laser drill as a villain in the new movie that's coming out.
And it'll have...
Since they reuse tons of stuff.
And each laser it fires will have big, bright blue lens flares and stuff. And it'll be like the super edgy version of the laser drill. Lots of teenage angst.
Oh, God.
In case you can't tell, we really didn't like this episode. But I will explain why soon enough.
Yeah, give us the plot summary and then we'll kind of go through it from beginning to end.
Alright, plot summary. The Enterprise goes to visit Valera 3, a planet undergoing the process of terraforming. While there, a technician is killed by what appears to be a malfunction with the laser drill. After some investigation, it is revealed that the drill was sabotaged and the remaining terraformers become suspects. Meanwhile, Data and Geordi discover a possible life form on the planet. After studying it, they determine that it exists as an inorganic single-celled organism. It starts dividing itself and reproducing, growing smarter in the process. It declares war on the Enterprise for what it perceives as the murder of its kind by the terraformers. The Enterprise crew determines that it needs light to survive, so they cut off its light source, forcing it to accept a truce. Then they beam the life form back down to the planet and leave. The end. I suppose I should also add that it's implied that the aliens hacked into the laser drill. It doesn't really come across very well in the episode, though.
The whole laser drill scene was just weird. It was like they were setting it up to be some sort of big conflict in this episode. And then it's just like, oh, okay, we're good now.
Yeah, alright, well, let's go back to the beginning, though, when they first beamed down to the planet. Because you said you had something to say about the assistant?
Oh, I mean, there's a lot of terrible acting in Season 1, but this lab assistant lady sounded more robotic than Data does. And it was just, I don't know, it was hard to get through those scenes because she gives them a tour of the facility and all this stuff. And it's just, and this is how we will do this.
Yeah, it's about like 2 straight minutes of them just explaining how terraforming works, and it's very stilted and wooden.
It was just explanation too, because it doesn't really. We don't need to know the entire process. It doesn't matter.
It's not even. It's not even crucial to like the rest of the episode.
Nope.
It's just like, hey, we're gonna do this. I don't even really remember what they said. They're just like, oh, here's phase 1, here's phase 2, here's phase 3.
We need 50 minutes, guys. Give them some technobabble.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a recurring thing with the first season is they don't write enough to fill the time, which is funny because most of the time writers end up writing too much and it has to be cut. But it feels like with this season they just didn't write enough, so they wrote a bunch of like filler stuff that just drags on.
Yeah. And then right before they went down to, I don't remember if you mentioned it in your summary. I know it was pretty short, but the guy who runs the place is super hostile and doesn't want them to come down. And then once they actually come down, he's all like, "Hey, friend, sorry, I'm just stressed." And it's like,
he's all like, he's super outrageously shifty for no good reason whatsoever.
Yeah, it's just like, here is a suspicious man. Like,
and that's basically Troy's conclusion too. It's like, oh gee, did we really need an empath to tell us that this guy is suspicious? Because he's practically radiating suspicion, man.
Yeah. Most of her role has been stating the obvious in this show, though.
Mm-hmm. She's basically just like, she's the physical embodiment of foreshadowing in this season. Like every episode, it's like, oh hey, here's this guy. What do you think of him? I think he's suspicious.
Yeah, or someone on the view screen says something along the lines of, "I will kill you," and she goes over and whispers, "He's gonna kill us." Like, yeah.
And then sometimes just says some things that don't even like make sense when it comes to emotional things. Like he's being
how it can be so
secretive.
specific. It can be really specific, and then other times she's like, "I can only sense like raw emotions," and then other times she says something.
Yep.
Like, oh, he's hiding something about his long lost brother, and you know.
Or he values this and that, and Like, it's endemic to a lot of TV at the time, but it is very noticeable in this first season how her, like, powers seem to, like, jump around and scale, and just...
Yeah, it gets better. Everything about the show gets better as it goes on. And
Okay, let's move forward then. So, after the awkward tour, one of them goes into the laser drill place, and then there's a lot of, like, pew pew boom and screaming, and then they open the door and he's dead.
Yeah. Laser drill from hell, man.
And then they spend about, what was it, like 15 minutes talking about the laser drill? And here's something that, like, one of the bad things I wrote about this episode is that the writing is incredibly wooden. Like, even, like, getting past, like, the stilted acting from a lot of people in this episode, I feel like the writing itself is super wooden. So I remember,
everyone
when
comes off
in there,
as a block of wood, basically.
Yeah. Yes. Hence wooden writing. But I remember one specific scene where Data's in there investigating the laser drill or something. He has this weird line about, like, it's almost like the laser drill had a will behind it or something. It's like, can you make the foreshadowing any more obvious?
Can we stop speaking in backwards riddles right now, please?
Yeah, there's just a lot of really silly writing. Like, wooden writing, and there's a lot of foreshadowing. It's just like, we know it's gonna... Like, basically, if you watched Star Trek before, you can kind of guess where this episode's going.
It's an example of one of those episodes that if it was made in, like... If it was made in Season 5 or 4 or just sometime later on, there would be a big B-plot, and the episode would feel more complete. But in Season 1, some episodes just don't have one, and this is one where it's just... they just drag everything out.
Yep.
So long.
Yeah, because this episode just is straight up like, there's only one plot, and that's the...
Like, I could have used some...
investigation thingy.
Could use some Data screwing around in his quarters scenes or something. I don't know. Yeah, they set up the laser drill and all that stuff and talk about how it seems to have had its own will, and then they kind of don't talk about it later, but you're supposed to assume that it was controlled by the little beings.
The alien that they describe. And actually, I'm going to jump back really quick because I forgot to mention something. Did you find the music during the, when the guy's being attacked by the laser drill in the beginning of the episode, did you find that music just really, like, off-putting?
To be honest, it's been like a week since I've seen it. I don't remember.
But I just remember it's, like, weirdly, like, up-tempo music as they're trying to get in, and I'm just sitting there thinking, this does not work.
I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of the music has been pretty strange.
But I just remember it being, like, really, really strange. But anyway, jumping back, forward, back, whatever.
Jumping back to the future.
Back to the future! But jumping forward to the rest of the episode, they do investigation for quite a long time, and then Data and Geordi beam down later and find some blinking light thing in the shaft, I think?
Yep.
And Geordi says some weird thing about, it's got, like, harmonic synchronicity or some other type of babble, which is basically just telling you it's straight up intelligent or something.
Yeah, that's out of the ordinary, at least.
It's out of the ordinary. So they, they take it back to the ship, and for some reason it takes them, like, a good 20 minutes before they finally settle on the fact that it's an alien life form, even though right from the start you can
because it's not carbon-based. So they're all very doubtful of it, because maybe... I haven't seen the original series in forever. Maybe this was the first time in Star Trek that they had shown that kind of a life form so far, because I know they haven't shown the crystalline entity or anything yet either. So...
I thought they did, though. I thought we already had the Data Lore episode with the crystalline entity.
Oh yeah, we did. So they have seen life that isn't carbon-based.
Well, even getting past that, there's so many, weird little cues that are like straight up, this is, some kind of intelligence or something, and they seem to either
they're so dense about
disregard it, or they're just really dense about it. And that was the impression I got from most of this episode, that the characters are incredibly dense. Like, even after, like...
It's just symptoms of, like, I really think they just had to stretch it out, so they probably originally wrote it so that they figured out it was life pretty quickly, and then they thought, oh shit, we need 5 more minutes of runtime. Let's talk about it for a while.
Because there's several moments
Is it
where...
life?
There's several moments where, like, they say it is life, and then they go back to being like, but we're not sure if it is actually life, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Oh, it is life, and it's trying to communicate with us. That's apparently a horrible thing for some reason. Like, the moment it starts trying to communicate with them, they all run out of the sick bay and lock it down.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit, it's trying to communicate. Lock it in.
I don't know. This is one of the episodes where I could have used one of the terrible season 1 B plots.
Just to break up the pacing a little bit.
Yes, every part of this episode could have been cut down by 5 or 10 minutes.
Oh, I completely agree.
every plot movement could have just had the laser drill thing been like, oh, it was controlled by something. Oh, we found some life. Oh, we bring it up. Oh, it's life. Oh, it took over the ship. Oh, okay. And it was just them artificially stretching it out. And
I will say, like, once they start actually, like, delving into more of what the alien creature actually is, I will say that was the good thing I wrote about this episode, was that it was actually a pretty intriguing concept of what an alien being could be, because most of
it actually felt Star Trek-y.
aliens in this episode are basically just, humans in different dress for a long time, and this was one of the first times, I mean, aside from the crystalline entity, which we've already mentioned, but it's one of the few times where it's like we actually get something different and unique.
Yeah, I feel like there was another episode I've completely erased from my memory where we talked about something like this, but it was the first time in a while that it's explored really like Star Trek-y concepts.
I think that might have been the Traveler episode. I'm not
sure. Yeah, the Traveler.
It was like the first real episode where they actually like had that sense of wonder or something. So
this one had that a little bit at the end. It was such a slog to get there.
Yeah, it took a while to get there, and just with how like awkward and dense the characters were being, it just doesn't come across right.
Making everyone's IQ go down by 20 points to make the episode longer does not make it entertaining.
No, it doesn't.
So, I don't know.
But yeah, and then once it starts communicating, that's when they find out that like it's pissed off because they've been mining the crap out of the planet and thereby destroying, an entire alien race for the most part.
Yeah, and I can guess that like some people wouldn't accept that it's not possible for it to be real life. Like the scientist leader from the planet wouldn't accept it. He just thought it was some sort of. I think he knew it was technically life, but that it wasn't intelligent. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And he thought it was the equivalent to like killing amoebas or something, and he didn't care. And so I can get some people not accepting that it's intelligent, but for the crew of the Enterprise, who's already been through like hell and back in one season, I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, they're supposed to be like the premier flagship of the Federation, and they're acting like a bunch of like nincompoops for this whole episode. It's just really off-putting.
Yeah, so I don't know. There's not much else to say about it. I like the theme at the end. They just could have used a lot more happening in the episode.
Yep.
So this problem that a lot of most of the episodes so far, either they have a B plot and it's terrible, or they don't have one at all, and it feels really weird because most television does.
Yep. Most, like, especially, I mean, maybe not back then, because like we've said many times, this show did revolutionize the way television worked.
Yeah, like as the show got better, other TV got better too.
So maybe like this was one of the first shows that really did a B-plot sort of thing, but I'm not very familiar with TV before, like, the 90s, so...
Yeah, me neither. I don't...
But I will say I did have a couple of silly things about this episode, like, especially, like, once the life form starts communicating with them, and then...
the voice.
Declares war and tries to destroy them. There's one line it had that just kind of made me start laughing, where it was a really apt description, but... I just thought it was, like, funny the way it worded, but when it describes, like, humans as, what was it, ugly giant bags of mostly water?
Yep.
Those are the words it used, and it was just really, I just thought it was kind of funny. Like, it makes sense,
It reminds me of HK-47 in Star Wars calling people meatbags.
Mm-hmm. Like, it makes sense, because we are pretty much just bags of water.
Yep.
Like, it makes sense, because I just thought it was funny. And then... Yeah. The other silly thing I wrote down was at the very end, after they cut off the light in the sick bay or wherever it was, the medical lab, because they figure out that the life form is like kind of photosynthetic in a way where it uses the light to replicate itself and thus grow smarter. So they cut it off and basically force it to accept the truth. And then they're like, oh, we're so sorry. And it's like, we'll leave you in peace. And then it says something like, come back 3 centuries. It's like, first of all, that's an oddly specific amount of time. I don't know where you're getting that. Second of all, why does an alien life form that isn't carbon-based and looks nothing like us have the same exact concept of time that we do?
I'm trying to find some sort of bullshit explanation. Maybe because it tapped into the ship, it knew about their time measurements. So it went through their databases. I don't know.
It's just kind of weird.
Well, there's lots of that stuff in Star Trek, though.
Yeah, it kind of like took me back.
Like it couldn't be like come back in 346 Glimblarks or something, you know.
Yeah.
No one would know. I will say one other thing I'm remembering now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it hinted at that Riker and that really dull lab assistant lady were like having a thing? Kinda.
Sort of.
Like he had mega creeper eyes on her the whole time of the awkward tour, as you called it. And then they have like some moment later on the ship, I remember, but I don't remember what they said. But it was just like
that was when he was trying to find out if she like knew anything, which I was pretty sure they established early on using foreshadowing Troy that she knew nothing and that she was pretty much genuine. But
well, no one that dull could know anything like that.
But yeah, I do recall they have that weird moment in their quarters. Like, he does sort of start off being, like, somewhat flirty, but then once, like, the criminal investigation starts happening because of all the events of the episode, he doesn't quite go all the way with it like he does.
I just think part of it is Jonathan Frakes acting. He gets those creeper eyes, and it's like the Harp women all over again every episode. Anytime there's a female on screen, his eyes light up. It's so weird. I don't know what he's trying to portray when he does that, but it's really strange. I don't know.
Yeah, I will agree with that.
I don't know. I mean, whatever. That's Riker's character, I guess. They tried to make him like a Kirk type womanizer or something, but it didn't work.
It just doesn't kind of fit. It just doesn't fit with this like show.
He's not nearly badass enough to be like Kirk either, in that way.
Yeah, that's true. But it's just this style of show is much more like it's trying to be like serious, whereas I think 60s Star Trek was like somewhat aware that it was like super campy.
I don't know. I mean, you compare it to anything else from the time. The original series is leagues beyond anything else. Even like the Battlestar Galactica series came out in the 80s. It was crap compared to the original Star Trek series.
70s.
I don't know. Oh yeah, like late 70s. Like
10
10 years later, and it was terrible compared to the original series. So you just have to take it in context of the time. That was when like Bonanza was a big thing and all that stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. Riker just really pisses me off in this season. I don't know why every time.
I'm not bothered by it, I guess, as much as you are, but I do understand that he is kind of like they try to make him into like the charismatic womanizer, and it just doesn't really fit with his character very often.
Like during that tour, like, they're trying to explore some high concept sci-fi stuff, and I just can't help but focus on Riker with his like predatory eyeballs,
his googly eyes.
He's like, oh yeah, I could get her to come back to my quarters and play the harp. No, it's just so weird. He really bothers me, but I know he gets better later on in the show.
Yeah.
Once he actually gets an episode that focuses on him instead of being like a side. He and Worf both. I guess a lot of the characters really haven't had centric episodes on them,
only
except
really,
for Data.
So far, it's Data and I guess Picard in a little ways.
Yeah.
Because they've already established that whole weird thing with him and Dr. Crusher and him sending her husband to death or something.
I think that's next episode.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
They've established it before.
Okay.
They've established it sometime before. Spoiler alert, we've already watched the next episode as well, so we'll be recording that sometime soon.
Yeah.
But I think we can probably about wrap it up now because we're starting to ramble again, and I'm sure
it's so easy. I'll give this episode 5 out of 10 laser drills.
Yep, that would be about accurate.
Okay.
I think I'm pretty much just gonna like piggyback on your rating because I honestly have very little else to say.
What's the next episode called?
Maybe I'll give it 5 out of 10 ugly bags of water. Yeah,
I'll go with that. What's the next episode, Dylan? We already watched it, but I don't remember the name.
The next episode is... Oh, I forget the name of it, but it's the one where Wesley goes to the Starfleet Academy. So I forget the name of it though. Like I don't have it off the top of my head.
Well, he doesn't go to the academy.
Well, he goes through the entrance exam.
Yeah.
But he goes to a academy, like on some nondescript planet somewhere.
That episode is better than this episode.
Yeah, I will agree with that. I think this episode had a lot of
Coming
potential.
of Age is what it's called.
Coming of Age, thank you. But I feel like this episode had a lot of potential to be something interesting because you see it at the very end there with the alien life form, but for the most part it drags on too long that by the time it gets to the part that actually could have had some substance to it, you just don't care anymore.
Yeah, so. I'm excited for the end because there's some good episodes at the end of the season. Like, I remember liking Arsenal of Freedom when I was younger. I don't know if it'll hold up still.
Well, I guess we'll just have to watch and see.
And Conspiracy, which is just a ridiculous episode. So, anyway, yeah. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll do the next one in the next couple days and try to get back into the groove. Thanks, loyal listeners.
Bye-bye.